2017, Toyota introduced the Toyota CHR.
This is the 2019 model, which means it gets a few different updates. So in this video, we're going to go through all its different features to find out what's good, what's bad, and what's weird. First things first, let's talk about styling, because the CHR has some really unique and aggressive styling. Now, of course, styling is subjective, but we do want you guys to tell us what you think in the comments down below. A few things that I wanted to point out here on the CHR. These headlights, first of all, I think they're really cool, how big they are, but also the fact that they have LED daytime running lights. Those always look really cool. If you come along the side, there's this really cool body line that kind of swoops down and then picks up at the back. I think it's a really fun feature. And the last thing, well, you have to come around to the back. The last styling feature I wanted to point out are actually these taillights. They have this really cool bulbous shape, and I just love the way that they stick out from the side of the car. Of course, you also get a little spoiler, and one interesting thing here on the CHR is that if you come down to the bumper down here, you'll notice they don't have fake exhaust tips, which is a good thing in my book. They've just tucked the real one really far up underneath the bumper. One really interesting thing about the CHR is this rear door handle. I mean, look at this. It's not mounted down here somewhere, it's up here at the top. How fun is that? I think it's cool. All the exterior styling features I think are pretty cool, but it presents one issue in terms of visibility. Take a look out of the back of the CHR and you'll notice that, well, you just can't see all that much. The C-pillars are huge, they make a really big blind spot, and that back piece of glass is just really small, and it's just hard to see out the back. Fun fact about the CHR, well, while I was doing some research on Toyota's website for this video, and I found the departure angle rating for the CHR, and Toyota says that this has 38 degrees of departure angle. Now, obviously, departure angle is something that you really only care about for off-road vehicles. It doesn't matter so much for something that's meant for the streets like this. But it is interesting because that is more departure angle than one of Toyota's most off-road capable vehicles, the Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. Speaking of TRD Pro 4Runners, click on the link right here in the corner of the screen to watch our friend Steven take one of those off-road in some serious conditions up in Canada. This is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that makes, in this instance, 144 horsepower and 139 pound-feet of torque. Here in the CHR, you get one choice of transmission and one choice of driven wheels. It's a CVT, a continuously variable transmission, and you're sending that power to the front wheels only. Obviously, it's very snowy in Boulder, Colorado right now, and I'm not going to spend too much time complaining about this because, well, it probably doesn't matter for the people that live in like California or Florida or something like that. But I do kind of wish that this came with all-wheel drive as an option. It's kind of a bummer that it only has front-wheel drive. That being said, it does get pretty decent gas mileage. According to the EPA, it'll get 27 mpg in the city, 31 mpg on the highway for a combined rating of 29 miles to the gallon. But when you take a look at its competition, well, that number seems a little less great. The competition that I'm referring to most directly is the Honda HR-V, the Mazda CX-3, and the Nissan Kicks, and I'll show you those mpg numbers right now. Obviously, 144 horsepower is not a crazy power figure, and as a result, well, the CHR isn't the quickest thing on the road, but I think when you take into account the sort of gas mileage that it gets, you can give that a pass. What's it like to drive the CHR? Well, overall, it's a pretty positive experience. It's not particularly fast, but I don't mind too much that it's not the quickest thing in the world. However, it does handle pretty well. Toyota gave this McPherson strut front suspension and multi-link rear suspension, which means, well, it's fully independent suspension, and it handles actually really nice. You can kind of throw it into a corner, it hunkers down a little bit, it's really fun, kind of tossable. Now, it's not all-wheel drive, it's front-wheel drive, and we are here on a pretty snowy day in Boulder, Colorado, so I will tell you a little bit about how it drives in the snow. Obviously, front-wheel drive is nice because you have all the weight of the engine over those front wheels. We don't have any snow tires here right now. These are just all weather, all seasons. They're mud and snow rated though, so things are going just fine. The streets we're on right now, they're not being plowed, and there's a little accumulation on the ground, but I actually don't have too many concerns about driving this in the snow. I mean, we're losing a little bit of grip here and there, but fairly confidence-inspiring overall. Okay, the other big part of ride and handling is obviously cabin noise when you're on the highway. So we're going about 60 miles an hour here on the highway, and I'll shut up and let the decibel meter show you how loud it is in the cabin. So we're hovering right around 60 decibels, which is actually a fairly respectable number, and I have to say that my ear test is telling me the same thing. It's a very pleasant, quiet place to be. There's not a whole lot of road noise. It's a nice thing to drive. What about utility? Well, as you can see, I actually have loads of space here in the front seat. I mean, I'm 6'2", I have a ton of headroom, plenty of shoulder room. It's actually very comfortable and very spacious. But what about the back seat? That's always the more tricky one, isn't it? Well, I'm sat behind myself here, and I fit. There's enough room. It's actually not too bad for headroom. I thought because of the sloping roofline that headroom would suffer a little bit, but I'm pretty comfortable back here actually. Pretty good for rear seat room. But what about the trunk? Open the hatch back here and you're greeted with 19 cubic feet of storage space, which is pretty respectable. The one thing that's a little weird is that, well, you got your spare under here and there's some little dishes and cubbies, but I kind of feel like the spare should be lower down. It feels kind of high up and it feels like you lose space as a result. Once you take off the parcel shelf, you can pretty easily fold the back seats using these little handles up here. Once you fold down the second row of seats, you're greeted with a much larger 36.4 cubic feet of storage space, which I must admit is actually pretty good. You could fit a lot of stuff back here. I guess I could get in and show you what I mean, right? Yeah, look at that. Hey, oh, yeah. So, fair amount of storage space back here. Pretty good. For 2019, Toyota has upped the amount of technology you get in the CHR, and the biggest way you can see that is by taking a look at the infotainment system, because the CHR now gets Toyota's Entune 3.0 infotainment system. So this is an 8-inch touchscreen display, and the most notable thing that it comes with, well, if you hit the little menu button here, you can see it has a tab for projection, which tells you that this system is compatible with Apple CarPlay. However, I am an Android user, which means that I would prefer to have Android Auto as an option. Unfortunately, Toyota still does not offer Android Auto in the CHR or anything with Entune 3.0 just yet. The other half of the tech equation for the CHR is Toyota's driver and safety enhancement suite. It's called Toyota Safety Sense P. It's not the latest version of this suite, but it does come with lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, automatic high beams, and pedestrian detection. While we're here inside the CHR, I did want to point out a bunch of different stuff on the interior because I think this interior is super stylized and actually really cool. Now, the first thing that you notice right when you step inside is this giant blue trim piece that covers the whole dashboard. It goes around the infotainment screen. I just love that they've thrown something like a matte blue finished trim piece on the inside of the CHR. Of course, there's also some cool plastic trim pieces that are like a gray diamond pattern, but it's not just painted on or a graphic or something like that. No, it's actually textured. In the door cards, you can feel it. I think that's a really cool touch. If you take a look up above you, you'll notice the little cutout for the visor. Well, that's even kind of stylized. It's this weird little diamond pattern that Toyota has put in here, and it actually shows up not just up here, but a bunch of different places inside the cabin. It's in the door sills, it's next to the back seats, it's in the trunk as well. They've put this diamond stuff all over the place. Also, right up here, you have the little microphone, you have the buttons for cabin lights. It's all the same kind of diamond pattern that they've thrown throughout the interior here. If you move down to the center console here, there's some other fun things to take note of. The first one I really like is this cup holder behind the shift knob, because it has this little plastic piece in it that you can use to change the size of the cup holder. Look, then there's also this little cubby located up here, kind of in front of the shifter, and it looks very clearly to me like it's meant for a phone. But there's one kind of crucial issue with that. I have a rather large phone. This is a Google Pixel 3 XL, and unfortunately for me, it doesn't seem that my phone actually fits in this little cubby. Of course, there's also these seats. Now, these ones are some pretty simple cloth, but they're this two-tone color scheme, and they're actually very comfortable. I love cloth seats, especially here in Colorado in the winter. It's very cold outside right now. Unfortunately, they're not heated, so my butt isn't getting much warmer than it would be, but at least they're not leather, so I'm not completely freezing. Overall, I actually really like this interior. As I showed you guys earlier, there's plenty of space in here for you, for your friends. There's all these cool little stylish touches. It feels very modern, feels very fun, very hip. I just like it. It's a pleasant place to be. Value is a really interesting subject with the 2019 Toyota CHR because they actually brought the base price of the base model down a pretty significant amount. In 2018, the starting price for the CHR was $22,500, but here in 2019, the starting price for the base model is $20,945. And the reason they did that is actually pretty obvious. It's to be closer to the competition. If you take a look at the pricing of the same competitors we mentioned earlier, the Mazda CX-3, the Honda HR-V, and the Nissan Kicks, you can see that the new starting price is much closer to its competition. Those are, of course, just the base prices. This is the XLE trim, which is like the mid-range trim, and it's a little more expensive. As tested, this one is $24,710. So as you guys can probably tell at this point, the CHR does have its fair share of good, bad, and weird features, but overall, I'm actually pretty pleased with this car. I'm particularly happy to see Toyota taking some risks, especially in the styling department, because I think in this case, well, it really paid off for them. They ended up with a fun car that's pretty easy to drive, easy to live with, and overall just a pleasant package. But of course, we want to know what you guys think. So please drop your comments down below. Tell us what you think of the CHR and if you would take this over some of its closest competition. For the Fast Lane Car, I'm Mike Curtis. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please be sure to stay tuned to TFLcar.com for the latest news, views, and real world good, bad, weird reviews just like this one. We'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna go warm up because it is 14 degrees in Boulder right now, which is too cold. Too cold.